I want to talk a little bit about some company updates, but first there was a question posed in the community forum about what's going on with stagflation. Um, what do you do when the economy is facing stagnant growth and high inflation at the same time? Typically, the dual mandate of the Fed is to address the more important of those two and then act on it, right? You either want to stimulate the economy if it's in stagnant growth, or kind of constrict the economy if the inflation is getting out of hand. But what do you do if you got both of those at the same time? How do you handle something that's got stagnant growth and also high CPI prints or high inflation prints? This is a challenging situation for the central banks to figure out how do you actually handle this in a way that doesn't lead to bad outcomes for the economy as a whole. And so the first of those, when we look at kind of the stagnant growth side of it, um, the unemployment rate did tick up. And again, this is economists putting together things that they've looked, at the labor markets, at inflation, things that are going on in the economy as a whole. I am not an economist. I personally think that a lot of these, you look for the narrative and then you go back and look for the data to explain the narrative rather than the other way around. I think that for the most part, it's very hard to make a certain decision on what comes next if you're an economist. I think this is useful context, but I would never use this as the gospel of how to invest based on what economists are seeing in the economy. Disclaimer up, but I want to at least share some of the information that they've shared that we've seen out there from the state of the macro. The unemployment rate did tick up again in February, right? 4.3% in January up to 4.4% in February. That's up a couple basis points from 4.1% a year ago. And we also lost jobs. Non-farm payroll employment decreased by 92,000 jobs in February as opposed to the previous month. And then on top of that, too, the other side of that. So this is the stagnant economy side of it. Let's look at the other inflation side of it, things getting more expensive, is that we've got a conflict going on in the Middle East with Iran and the United States right now. And of course, there's a lot of oil that's going from that part of the world to the rest of the world as well. That's really just kind of slowed down right now. Maybe 20% of the world's oil supply is at risk because of just the vessels and the things that are going on. It's significantly less than that. Of course, Iran is still exporting oil, mostly to China. It's going elsewhere, a little bit less to Western countries as this conflict is going on. But we've got to kind of see, with crude oil now, oops, yep, kind of now surpassing $100 a barrel, the price of gas at the pump for consumers up to 384 a gallon yesterday versus 292 a month ago. When you see that kind of a spike, that's gonna, of course, be difficult for consumer discretion. Consumers just have less money to spend on things when you have to spend on things like oil or gasoline at the pump. And again, there's a lot of chatter about where is this going to go? Is the economy going into a recession if people stop spending money on things? There are forecasts out there about the probability of the U.S. in a recession that the Wall Street Journal has sent out there. Most typically think, at least for a lot of the things that I've read, that it's less than a 50% chance of recession if we can keep this conflict to a reasonable timetable. That spikes like these tend to happen, and they aren't as important 2 or 3 years out for long-term investors as many might believe. They're important in the time, and they're important to the state of the economy. And of course, anybody who's paying more at the pump, it's important for your month-to-month bills and how you're spending your money. But in the grander scheme of things, I don't think a lot of this has as much to do for companies you're holding on to for 3 to 5 years as it might seem at the moment. But I wanted to share some context on that. I'm going to open it up. Please share your own thoughts about what's going on with stagflation. But again, this is something that kind of is the narrative is evolving from SaaS apocalypse to stagflation. Now we're talking about, people are saying the Fed's not going to cut rates. We're gonna stay where we are. There's kind of a debate on what happens next. I think that even the economists are not universally agreed on what's going to happen with everything they're seeing in the economy. It's a mixed bag, so to speak.